Joining us now, Shashi Tharoor, who headed the Standing Committee on Foreign Relations when the Doklam standoff took place. Mr. Tharoor, is it true that your committee had warned the government to react to China with extreme caution and skepticism, whatever happened to your Standing Committee report after the Doklam standoff?
Right, Rajdeep. So in fact, the report said, and I quote the actual words of the report, the committee are of the opinion that while dealing with China, it is better to have a sense of healthy skepticism. Even if they've withdrawn their troops from Doklam for the time being, China's strategic intentions should not be taken casually. The committee would therefore urge the government not to let its vigil down in order to prevent any untoward incident in future. So it was very clear what the committee was saying to the government. The government unfortunately chose not to heed this. There was no discussion of this in Parliament, and it does look as if we may have missed a trick in monitoring China with that degree of suggested skepticism that the committee wanted the government to. Given what happened with the build-up since April, the incidents in early May, and now the tragedy of the loss of 20 Jawans on the 15th of June, it certainly looks as if, as Rahul Gandhi has pointed out, the government may have missed the trick. Now, we stand with the army, no question about this. The political establishment will be united, I'm sure, in standing with the army and behind our own borders. But the government has certain accountability to the nation, and I don't think we can entirely afford to let the government forget that.
Now, your report was, though, confined presumably to what happened in Doklam. At no stage did you express concerns over possibly Chinese designs in the Ladakh. Am I clear?
The report was an overview of India-China relations. So it was a comprehensive report. It's a public document. Do look it up.
So, no, what I wanted to ask you was, at any stage in that report, did you express concerns that China may have an eye on the Galwan Valley, on the Ladakh sector, that may be a potential area which the Chinese would be looking at? Did you look at these strategic issues at all?
Yes, we did. That's the whole point of the report. We looked at everything. We mentioned the Panongso Lake. We mentioned Taiwan. Many of these names that have come up in the media will be found in the report. And in all fairness, the MEA engaged with us in all of this. There was a bit of a to-do about how much of what the MEA said to us should feature in a public report. And so I had agreed in the end to a number of redactions so that any sensitive information would not feature. But the actual recommendations of the committee have not been diluted or redacted, and they are very firm, and they were unanimously agreed, including by the BJP members on the committee. So I do want to stress that this is a report that the Parliament
Did you push for a full hearing? Did you push for a full debate on this report at any stage in Parliament, and what was the response you got at the time?
We, of course, requested the Foreign Minister, Sushma Swaraj, that we should discuss this. In the end, no, I think we all ran out of time. As you know, very little happened in Parliament in the budget session. And the winter session was considered too soon. MEA was still digesting the report, which was in fact submitted at the end of the summer. In fact, if I were to look at the exact date of submission, we submitted it on the 25th of August. So between the 25th of August 2018 and the elections being called in March of 2019, it was not discussed. I will say that if the ministry had wanted a discussion, there was time to organize one. But I think the ministry was quite happy to let it drift and let it go off the handle.
Do you therefore believe that the government took its eye off the ball? Is that your suggestion? And therefore, had this report and indeed the caution that had been expressed been addressed or been reflected by the government, that perhaps we could have avoided the situation that we now find ourselves in today?
Well, I think, Rajdeep, even though you and I are only speaking from publicly available information, and we don't have access to the confidential information the government has, it does seem that we have been caught by surprise, both at the strategic and the tactical level. And when you look at the fact that according to the information in the media, that we sort of missed out on the Chinese build-up, which wasn't an overnight build-up. It took some time. The deployment of regular PLA troops happened. When you find the PLA sending bulldozers to the border, this isn't routine patrolling along the misperceived LAC. When you see reserves being built up, when you see a build-up all the way along the LAC, and you see that we have vulnerabilities in the very areas of intrusion that the Chinese have come into, it would suggest that we didn't take the dangers seriously enough. Whether it was because our political leadership was lulled into complacency by the so-called spirit of Wuhan and the spirit of Mamallapuram and so on, that is something for the government to tell us. Eventually, we have at the moment paid a sorry price. We have lost territory that we claim is ours, and it's not clear where the government is going to stand up in terms of its insistence on a return to the status quo ante. If the Chinese don't go back to the kind of patrolling and the positions they occupied in April, early April, then we have actually suffered a setback from that date. If they are now in a position to consolidate their position, have, for example, durable or permanent structures in positions where they never had them before and which we claim as our territory, then that is not just a loss of face, that is a fairly significant strategic setback against an adversary that is flexing its muscles all the way around its periphery, whether with us on the land, whether with the Vietnamese on the South China Sea, with the Taiwanese, with Hong Kong, with Malaysia. They're really showing that they have a new assertive approach in the world, and India needs to show very clearly what it makes of it and what its own response is going to be.
Can I ask you one final question? Because you've also tweeted today, some tell me this report and the discussions that preceded it are why I am no longer chairman of that committee. It almost seems to suggest that because you put out such an extensive detailed report on Indo-China issues, a report that was not discussed in Parliament, it seemed to embarrass a few people, or some people didn't want to put it out in the public domain, and you paid a price. That's what you're trying to suggest. That's presumably pure speculation on your part at this moment, or do you believe that there is reason to believe that you were, in a way, made a fall guy for putting out such a report?
Well, as I said, it's what some people have said to me. These are rather well-placed people, and I won't go further because these are private conversations. But the government were not happy about the candor of the discussion, particularly around Doklam, because that was the hot issue at that moment. Even though the report itself, I think, is a product that takes into account the government sensitivities on some of the details provided within it, the conclusions are the committee's own, and perhaps the government didn't particularly want to hear that skepticism was needed, or that we were too complacent in some of our dealings and so on. And perhaps the government felt that putting the chairmanship in the hands of the BJP was the only way to ensure that anything didn't occur in the committee that the government might find embarrassing in a future situation. Certainly, for example, if I was chair of the External Affairs Committee today, I would want a discussion on what strategic perceptions or misperceptions occurred in the context of this incident. And that's something which clearly the government doesn't want to be accountable for. This is the problem we're facing with a government that doesn't particularly enjoy parliamentary oversight. We've had 3 months without any parliamentary committees meeting. I, as chairman of the IT committee now, have been calling for that. I have requested the speaker personally on the phone, formally in writing, and in all the official ways, to allow me to convene meetings by video, because obviously in the restraints and restrictions right now, members cannot travel lightly to Delhi or go back easily to their constituencies. So I said, let's have a video meeting with all the necessary precautions. It doesn't have to be on Zoom, a platform that the government seems to be allergic to. It can be on an NIC platform, because that's it's very adequate to absorb the numbers of members who could participate. We could keep all the necessary precautions in terms of ensuring that registration access is given to only authorized members and secretariat personnel and NIC. Having said all of that, to this day, 3 months after the lockdown began, I still do not have that permission to have a meeting. Parliament itself, we are no closer to hearing about an intention.
I want you, I'm giving you a minute.
Being used on parliamentary committees is confidentiality that they say could be violated by going on a recordable platform like video. Then Parliament itself is regularly broadcast on television. Why not have Parliament meet? In 1962, Atal Bihari Vajpayee called for Parliament to meet and discuss the Chinese war while it was going on. And Nehruji agreed. Why can't we do our jobs that way? That too has not been conceded yet by the government of India. So I'm afraid parliamentary oversight is a serious issue on which this government can legitimately be found wanting.
I take your point. I have 60 seconds, Dr. Tharoor. You know, you wrote a book, The Paradoxical Prime Minister. How do you assess Mr. Modi, the paradoxical Prime Minister, in the context of China? Someone who's reached out to Xi, has a special relationship, it appears, he claims at least, with the Chinese president, and then we have what happened in Ladakh. How do you, as a diplomat, see that? Have we forsaken the quiet rigor of diplomacy for optics at time? Is that the flaw? Were we lulled into complacency, in your view, by the Chinese? A quick final word.
Well, not necessarily, because obviously you do things behind closed doors when it comes to diplomacy, and you do some things in front of the cameras. But when the Prime Minister says we'll defend every stone, every inch of territory, and when he says India is capable of giving a reply if provoked, aren't we provoked? Can he tell the nation, take us into confidence as to what he's thinking, what his strategic red lines are? If he does that, we don't need to judge him harshly. But as of now, it does certainly seem that he hasn't leveled with the Indian people about whether he was asleep at the switch.
Was he asleep at the wheel is the big question at the moment that Dr. Tharoor wants to raise. You've told us a little bit about that Parliamentary Standing Committee report. We will certainly delve deeper into it. Dr. Tharoor, thank you very much for joining us here on India Today.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.